Vietnam, Apollo, and has very generously agreed to be part of the conference today. Thank you for being with us, and I think it's a really exciting topic, something that I've got absolutely no idea about, so I know I'm going to learn a lot. Over to you, John. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. For those that didn't hear it, so I'm the head of academic for Apollo. So yeah, we're a very large setup nationwide, as I just went through. In total about 23 schools. And my job is basically overseeing the academic side of all of that. So from teacher training to recruitment to everything else in the middle. So there's a few things. So today we're going to talk about pair work and group work for very young learners. That's for us, we call them kindy. So when you're seeing the slides and things, if you see kindy, that's kindergarten. They're about 3.5 to 6 is the sort of age group. On the videos, I've roughly put the ages, so you know. You'll see a few things. We have teaching assistants in our classes, which I know some of you don't have, or a lot of you might not have. And just a quick thing, our lessons are 2 hours long in general. So the bits you're going to see today are more structured parts of the lesson, but that isn't all we do. So just to sort of say that from the get-go. So what we're going to talk about today is, as you can see from the title, pair work and group work for very young learners. It's reduced from a 2-hour face-to-face workshop. So it's going to be pretty brief. I'll offer a lot of it. What I'm going to do is we'll cover the sort of the basics of sort of the why we do it. So the sort of a little bit of the ideas behind doing the pair work and the group work, and some of the practical considerations. And then just a quick word on the teachers. So all the teachers in the videos, these are taken from just normal lessons. Things go wrong, they're not perfect, they're not set up, but always with this kind of stuff, just a big thanks to the teachers for letting me use their videos and showing all you guys. So really, I think the first question is, you know, who does pair work and group work in their very young learner classes? And by pair work and group work, I mean student to student, so not with a teacher involved. I'm glad to see that Apollo are writing that they do. So yeah, I think some of the reasons I didn't always do it in my teaching career, and I think some of the reasons that I get when we talk about these things is that, you know, sometimes we don't have confidence that the students can do it. Maybe it's too formal, they need too much help or too much support doing it. But I think really that sort of misses a beat, and I think it is important to do it. So we're just going to sort of look at that a little bit first. So it's a very long quote from Patsy Lightdown. I don't know if everybody can see it on their screen, so I'll just read through it. As more and more research has documented the ways in which children interact with the environment, developmental and cognitive psychologists find further evidence that language acquisition is usage-based. In this view, language acquisition is possible because of children's general cognitive capacities and the vast number of opportunities they have to make connections between the language they hear and what they experience in their environment. So I think that idea of interaction and that idea of usage-based, if you've been lucky enough to hear Patsy Lightdown talk, she talks about sort of them talking about their environment and things like that. But I think also we can say that language, we learn, or children learn language when that language has an effect, and when that language does something for them, and then the language becomes meaningful. So I think that's a really big reason that we need to encourage our students to do more pair work and group work and take more charge of the language usage in the classroom. And then when we look at sort of what we think about teaching and what we believe about teaching, and we talk about communicative stuff, for the people who've done the IHWO, they will know the MMM already, but it's not PPP, and I personally prefer it to PPP. But when we look at that, so the first stage is meeting the new language. So however you present it, and generally in a young learner classroom, that might be, it's probably through flashcards or visuals. Quite often it can be through TPR and things like that. But I think, you know, it depends on the environment and it depends on the students. But I think that's the, you know, we all know that stage. And then we manipulate the language, which is sort of where we have that control practice type thing going on. And then making the new language your own. And for me, this is what I really like about MMM as opposed to PPP. I feel that the production stage of that is just, it doesn't really tell us what we want that to achieve. Whereas making the new language your own, I think, does that. What we're going to see today is somewhere between the manipulating the new language and making the new language your own. They are very young learners, and this, we're going to look at sort of some of the basic building blocks. So to start off with, you're just going to have a look at an opening routine for a song with Kindy 1. So they're our lowest level Hindi classes. These students have actually had about 20 hours of classroom time up to this point. And this is one of our old teachers. Now, there's a YouTube link there. I'm going to play the video on here. But if you click on the YouTube link, you'll be able to open that YouTube link as well in case there's a problem with the video. So what I want you to do is just watch the video, and as you're watching it, just think about what you're seeing happening.
Touch
Okay, so yeah, we've got a demonstrating and modeling right there, and that's on the money. And so I think this is the opening routine. And I think I go into a lot of classrooms and people just put songs on and expect the kids to sing along. But really, when we think about the zone of proximal development and this type of stuff, and the quote from Vygotsky, I think that's how you say his name here, what a child can do with assistance today, she will be able to do by herself tomorrow. And I think that's key. I think what we want to do really is make sure that we give the children enough assistance that they can do what we're expecting them to do or what we want them to do in the classrooms. And I think sometimes we maybe forget about that a little bit. So in terms of what learners need in language terms, what do they need in order to achieve a task? You can stick your answers in the chat. Okay, yeah, so a lot of stuff there. I mean, in language terms, they're not that different to any other group of students. And I think sometimes we put the very young learners in a separate category. So yeah, there you go, the last answer up. They need all the necessary linguistic elements. So we talk about meaning, form, pronunciation, and we know these things from the introductory stages with language. But I think, yeah, the key thing is that we establish the language first. The kids know what we expect, and it's unfair if we expect them to do activities that require any skills or knowledge that we haven't given to them. And so we talk about MFP, but I think there's all those answers down there demonstrate there is a lot to think about with it. But I think the key thing is that we establish that language first. And I think just moving forward, it's worth saying now some of the activities you see and stuff like that, it's probably worth making the point that a lot of the videos you've seen, these kids have done these activities before, or so either the language is new or the activity is new, but don't try and fluster them with too much all at once. And then when we're talking about very, very low level, so sort of the Kindy 1 kids that we just saw there, it's really important to keep the language consistent throughout. If you're leading up to sort of activities where they're going to be doing pair work and group work, and the whole lesson you've been modeling, is it blue, is it red, is it green? And then suddenly for the final activity you switch to what color is it? You're going to blow their little minds a little bit because the structure's changing. So try and keep the language consistent and the language that you use in the classroom consistent as well. So let's sort of talking about establishing the language and why we do it. So, you know, if we're going to do student work in a VYL classroom, we've got to let go of the reins. And again, another quote from the YLT, that student-centered lessons come about from not planning how to let go of the reins. And I think this is certainly with very young learners, I think this is a big sort of fear factor for a lot of teachers, that, you know, letting that chaos in a little bit is can be a nerve-wracking thing, especially with the little ones. So we're gonna watch another video now, which is one of our teachers, Lauren, and it's building up to a group work activity. So as you watch it, I just want you to look at the setup and look for moments where you can see the support taken away. Now, I should say in this particular classroom, there's a really nice example, because in this classroom we have 2 trainee teaching assistants. So it's their first day, they're in the lesson to get trained, and Lauren has to take them away from the students at one point. And so watch the video, look for the parts where the support's being taken away, but also at the same time, keep your eye out for what happens when the TAs are removed from the game the students are playing. Okay, so again, the YouTube link's there, and I'll pop up the video here. the Google with the TAs. What happened when the TAs were taken away at the end? We have if you see in the last 2 minutes, the TAs, the 2 new TAs, Lauren had to take them away from the game. Now, as soon as Lauren took those children away, took the TAs away from the children just started getting on with it themselves. And I think that's really important to recognize that if there are adults there, kids will just naturally refer to them. They're used to getting told what to do by adults when adults are around. So, you know, you've got to give them the space, and you've got to give them the space to get on with it. And if you are constantly sort of trying to help out, what you find is that actually you're sort of a distraction. And it's very clear at the end of that video, as soon as those TAs disappear off the scene, the kids just start getting on with the game. And yeah, you can do these. I'm glad Lauren, and I'm going to guess that that's Andrew at HQV with us. You can do these games without the TAs. We don't, you know, things go wrong with organization and things like that. So it's not, you know, you're not guaranteed to have a TA in the classroom. But if the setup is good and you sort of tick the boxes, and I think just don't expect perfection either. They're you know, they're kids. They're going to play around and mess around as well. And that's really the big takeout from that. What other things did you see where the support, yes, consistency in language and routines is very key to all of this. And classroom management is very key to all of this. And that's this consistency and routines. I can't stress that enough. That's number one in the kindy classroom, and then you can start building on that. So what other examples did we see of Lauren taking away support during that? Because there were a few other things. We saw the TAs was the big one. There were a few other things. Yeah, but the word went out for sure. You also saw taking the voice away. So once the language was established, Lauren stopped. She'd still mouth the word, but she didn't say the word. So the kids had to say it. And you saw lots of things of moving the TAs away. We saw one of the TAs move away herself during the setup. So she made sure they were comfortable, and then she moved out of the picture. So yeah, I think it's really important that we're comfortable with that we're comfortable with letting them get on with it and being available. If you notice, Lauren was sat for the groups. She was sat out of the kids' eye line, so she's letting them get on with it, but she's still there if they need a little bit of support. Now, if you're doing this stuff for the first time, it's going to be messy. Don't worry about it. We're going to cover a bit more of a structured setup for the first times as well. But yeah, let go of the reins. We need to learn to let go of the reins. And so I've actually got it's a YouTube clip on this one. So before we get into that, I think one of the common activities I see, for example, is a like, don't like activity, where we get kids we draw a line down the middle of the classroom, and all the kids stand in the middle, and then we hold up a flashcard or show them a picture or whatever, and the kids jump one side if they like it, and one side if they don't like it. And if you ever see this done, I say it all the time, when you see this done in a classroom with very young learners, and what happens is the kids will all go to the same side. Even if a kid's in Vietnam, a lot of people don't like cheese. So even if a kid has said before they don't like cheese, and then you say like, don't like, they will jump the line, and they will all go to wherever the majority of the group is going. So in terms of setting up that kind of activity, something else we really need to remember is that, you know, that right-wrong answer is a big thing for kids. They might not know. You know, they might not realize that it's okay for them to like something or not something. So I'm just going to show you, it's a YouTube clip. You're going to have to click on the link. I'll put it in the comments. Oh, let me just find the link. Sorry. Oh, thank you, Lisa. So if you just click on the YouTube link and watch it, and it's just about the development stage for children. So I'll see you back here after you've watched that. Can you hear me now? Okay. Thank you. So I was saying, if you're ever bored on an afternoon or an evening, if you type theory of mind and Piaget into Google, there are loads of videos like that about what kids do understand and what they don't understand at different ages. I think kids actually understand that they're different from other kids at about 2. But it's still complicated for them. And the reason I think I want to show that video is just really, what does that mean for us when we're setting up activities? What does that mean about what we need to think about when we're setting up activities? And really, it's that we need to consider everything from the learner's point of view. So what can they do? What do they understand? We should understand who they are, what scaffolding and support they need from us, and the difficulties that they might have. And that's how we can then get to do the group work and the pair work and let them off on their own, because we've set the parameters and they understand it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the setup and a sort of fairly, if you're doing this with your learners for the first time, it's a simple TPR activity, and I just want you to watch the activity, the setup from beginning to end, and there's 5 stages, and I want you to just watch and see what's the purpose of each stage. And so, what does the stage do, and why is Will doing it? So I'll just pop the video up here.
Meow, 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 meow. All right, students, listen and do. Stand up, jump, sit down, look, listen, sing, oh, color. Stand up, run, jump, dance, ooh, rub your tummy, very good, clap your hands, climb, oh, very good, sit down, make a circle. Oh, draw. Speak. Make a triangle. Very good. Walk. And stamp your feet. Very good. Very good, everyone. Sit down, please. Now, I do, you speak. What? Dance. Very good. I want one student. Knee. Sit here, knee. This is much better. Jump. Walk. Make a circle. Draw. Sit down. Okay, you are the teacher. Speak. I'm sorry? All right, very good. Now I want two students, Alex and Lila. Lila here, Alex here. Okay, Alex, you are the teacher. Okay, good, Alex. Lila, now you are the teacher.
Stand up.
Dance. Dance. Okay, very good. Thank you. Let's have two more students. How about Ni? Or T? I'm sorry, T. And Natalie. Okay. T, you are the teacher. Very good. Now, Natalie, now you are the teacher. Okay, very good. Now, two students together. So, Natalie and John, you two are together. And Harry and Nick. Alex and me, you two are together. You two are together. Jim, you are the teacher. You are the teacher. You are the teacher. You are the teacher. Okay, very good. Lila, you are the teacher. Okay, Alex, good job. You are the teacher.
Okay, so seeing that we'll go into the stages now. I'm not going to lie, those kids have done that activity before. But in terms of the different stages, what happened in stage 1? Yep, receptive. Yeah, so stage 1 is the receptive practice. He spoke, the students did the actions. So he's establishing the language. He definitely does use a lot of TPR to give instructions. Will's actually he's been with us for a while. He's very good at being consistent in his classroom, and you see that in his videos. We're going to watch another one in a second. So yeah, checking the recognition of the language before the student's producing it. He's establishing that language receptive first. So stage 2, what does he do in stage 2? Yep, so the students are now producing the language, and he does the actions, and they speak. So stage 2 is again establishing the language, but this time productively. And this stage also, this establishes or begins to establish the exchange pattern that he's building up to. What happens in stage 3? Yep, demo with the teacher. They model the activity. And there's something he does with the model. He doesn't just model it one way. He actually models it both ways. So in the demo as well, he's including the fact that both students are going to need to do it. And he's nominating, you're the teacher. So that's a key part as well. Who's saying and who's doing. So then stage 4, what happens with stage 4? Yeah, student-to-student demonstration. And this is important. The students are going to be doing it on their own. So he's showing them that they're going to be doing it without the teacher. So they're expected to do that. And then in the final stage, what happens in the final stage? Yeah, all the students get the chance to do it. The students practice it in pairs. And what does Will do? Yeah, there's plenty of monitoring, support, and you can see, I think, a little bit better with this activity that most of those students just got on with it. They didn't need a TA or anything like that. So you can kind of see this pattern there a little bit better. But the other key thing is he also ascribes the teacher role. And I've seen this activity fail because the teacher's done the wonderful setup, and then the two kids have just stood there looking at each other, and they don't know who to go first. So going back to that the point before, we've got to think of everything. It's not clear from the task itself who's going to start, so we need to think of that. Now, I know some of you are probably sitting there thinking, well, that setup seems like quite a long setup. Obviously, Will's, at this point, he's revising a lot of different language. So there's a lot of language he goes through on that. but does it always have to be? Does it always have to take so long with the setup? And really, no. Once the students know that pattern, and once students know what's expected, then the time comes right down. So I'm just going to show you a last video, and this one, it's with a different set of students. That's a good point, Lisa, actually, about the attention span. The kids are, you can do different things to, you know, like to involve the kids in the demos and stuff like that. Generally, I think one of the things that holds the kids' attention is that they're going to get a go, that they're up at the front, that they're being the teacher. And so, you know, they're sort of interested. And it's something, if you're doing it for the first time, it's something new. He wasn't. So actually, that class was a little more distracted than you might normally see. But generally, the kids are interested because they're going up to the front. Something different is happening. And it's like lots of little stages rather than one big stage where you're trying to hold their attention to the same thing. You think about it, each stage is actually something slightly different is happening each time. Let's just look at the video. Now this video is a card game. It's a little card exchange we play with mini flashcards, and we actually we give these flashcards to our parents so they can play with a little instruction book in Vietnamese, so they can play flashcard games at home. So a lot of these activities the parents know as well. We give them information on that. Let's just watch this last video, and we can see it's a much quicker setup because the patterns, the students already know the patterns and already know the exchanges.
What's this? Sit down. It's okay, Bill. Sit down. What is it? Kenton. Is it a notebook? No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Tila. No, it isn't. What? What is it? Kenton. Is it a notebook? No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Yeah. No, it isn't. What? Yes, it is. High five. Okay. What is it? Kenton. Yes, it is. Very good. I want one student who can help me. How about Bill? Can you help me? Here. I need one more chair, please. Okay, Bill. Cards for you. Okay. Is it a backpack?
Yes, it is.
What?
Yes, it is.
Hey! My turn. Oh, What is it? No, it isn't.
Wait.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. Very good. One more time. Is it a pen?
No, it isn't.
Is it a notebook?
No, it isn't.
Is it a backpack?
Yeah, it is.
Yay! Thank you. High five. Good job, Bill. Now let's have two students together. Natalie and Kenton. You two are together. You are. And Baba. Alex. Can you divide these into two groups? Okay, Lila. Oh, two pens. Okay. Here you are. Thank you. Computer for you. Oh, do you have two computers? You have two computers. Here's your computer.
Is it
Okay, so you see there, and as Lisa said, once they know these patterns and once they know what to expect, then we can, these things become a lot quicker. And I think what happens a lot of the time when we try these activities for the first time, it's a bit messy, maybe we forget stuff or we miss stuff out. But kids are great and kids want to do it. And I think to stick, you need to stick with these things. It's funny, sometimes I've observed classes and the instructions haven't been quite right, or maybe the activity's been a little bit more complicated. Maybe it's been, a coloring dictation or even a mingle or something like that. And the kids still sit there and try and work it out. And the card one is a nice one because there's lots of very definite concrete things. We know whose go it is, we know who's guessing, etc., etc. But yeah, essentially, it's worth taking that time, the first time or the first couple of times, to do it thoroughly. But once the kids are used to this, and once the kids, we know, like from the way they learn songs and the way they copy things, and we saw the little girl even copying Will's laugh and stuff like that. Kids learn by copying, they like to play, and they like to do these activities. So it's really nice to sort of, hand these things over to them and get them doing that. All right, so that's sort of the end. It's a little bit of a whistle-stop tour, so sorry about that. But just to do a quick recap. So I think, first of all, why do we want to do the pair work and group work? And we sort of touched on that, the fact that language is usage-based, it's meaningful. We talk about a communicative classroom. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the communication-based classroom. I think we get a little bit lost in communicative, but this idea that they learn by doing, and they learn, and they need to make the language their own, and they need to use it for themselves to do something for themselves. So, and then what do we need to think of? Well, really, we kind of need to think of everything. We need to plan the lesson, plan what we're doing from the point of view of the learner, and get inside their heads and think about, what is it that they need and what isn't it that they need. And the really good thing for this, if you're trying this stuff and it's not working or whatever, it's really nice as an observer. Sometimes it's easier to understand what's gone wrong because you're sitting there, you're not caught up in the lesson. So, you know, it can be nice if you're trying to do this stuff, get somebody in to observe you and say, this is what you want to do, and ask them to sort of, you know, what went wrong. Maybe you slipped up and your language went inconsistent. Maybe, you know, there were some things they didn't understand. And from an observer's point of view, sometimes it's easier to see what the kids didn't understand than from a teacher's point of view. Anyway, so that's kind of it. It was a little bit whistle-stop. Normally we would then go off and plan lessons. You know, we've got a couple of bits where they're doing larger group work ones, or there's one of Lauren who we saw earlier. That lesson builds up to a nice coloring dictation with shapes and colors. But yeah, so that's all we've got time for. I'm happy to stick around, answer some questions if people have got any. If Lauren and Andrew stick around as well, they spend a lot more time in the classroom than I do these days, so I'm sure they'll be able to help as well.
Well, I will just say thank you very much indeed. I think you've made the idea of going back into a very young learner classroom slightly less terrifying for me, John. So thank you very much for that. And the teachers there were just doing such a brilliant job. My hat's off to them. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Sorry?